The permission to say it. He is 94 years old. He's 93 years old and counting.
His Excellency Mr. Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, His Excellency Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, His Excellency Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister of Japan, His Excellency Mr. Battulga, President of Mongolia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to thank the government of Russia and Mr. Putin in particular for this invitation to participate in the forum on the Far East. This is, of course, the first time I'm attending this forum, and I'm very interested indeed as to what you will be discussing at this forum. Now, after I've listened to what Mr. Putin has to say, I realize that Russia now wants to develop its eastern provinces. We have always had this impression that Russia is not paying enough attention to its Far East territories. But now we see that the interest is very real, and to us, this may mean the opening up of new markets for Malaysia. Malaysia is a trading nation. It is always looking for markets, and when any place is developed, then the potential for trade would be much more. However, I must admit that I and most Malaysians do not know much about Vladivostok. We know that it is in a very cold part of Russia, but practically none of us have visited this place as tourists or have shown any interest in having trade with this part of Russia. But now, obviously, there will be potential in the future as Russia begins to develop this part of Russia. But because we know very little about this part of Russia, it is important that there should be more promotion, more publicity about this part so that Malaysians will get to know about this part of Russia more, and they would want to come to Vladivostok and the regions nearby. We know that tourism is one way of developing a country. Tourism has done very well in Malaysia, where the population is 32 million, but we have 29 million tourists a year. That's not very bad, very big if you compare with places like Venice or Egypt, but it is very substantial for Malaysia, and it has contributed much to Malaysia's development. The key to increase in tourism is publicity. We need to know more about the places that we want to visit. There are so many places in the world that are worth visiting, but if there is a new place, there should be more interest to see new things in new places. And I think Vladivostok might offer the kind of environment and situation that will attract tourists from Malaysia and other tropical countries. Malaysia is in the center of Southeast Asia. And from Malaysia, you can communicate throughout the Southeast Asian region, in particular the ASEAN grouping. But in order to be interested in coming here, I believe that one of the most important attraction would be sporting events. Just now, Mr. Abe mentioned about this rugby match between Russia and Japan. Now, if it is to be played in this part, in Vladivostok, then I'm quite sure this will attract many Southeast Asians to come here, because we too are very keen on this game. Besides, it will be like watching two giants playing. We only know small countries in Southeast Asia, and physically we are not very big. We are very small people. And so the rugby match would certainly be of interest to us in Malaysia and to other countries as well. Malaysia became attractive to tourists because of sports. We decided to host the F1 race and also the bicycle tour, the Langkawi, which is related to the Tour de France. And since we had these two events, we have been attracting a lot of tourists. But more important than that is the interest shown by Malaysians in both automotive engineering and the like, as well as in cycling. Today, you see in Malaysia lots of cyclists almost every day, although Malaysia's humid climate is not very conducive towards physical exertion. But it has developed into a very good attraction. The F1, for example, has attracted many tourists from all over the world. And the best thing about both the F1 as well as the Tour de Langkawi is that they are covered by 300 TV stations all over the world. Now, if you ask this TV station to advertise the event, they would charge you a fortune. A 3-minute show would cost us about 1 million Malaysian ringgit. But for those two races, they would show on the TV screen for 3 days in the case of the F1 race and 10 days for the cycle race. And they show the pictures of all parts of Malaysia, which in fact helps us to advertise our country, to attract tourists and to attract investors without our having to pay for the advertising. Although we do have to pay for bringing these two events to Malaysia. So I would say that this area of Russia would be very attractive to Malaysia if there are such events. Malaysians travel a lot, and the numbers which go to out of the country every year is very substantial, and they are looking for new places to go to. And I'm quite sure that with the development taking place here, more Malaysians would be coming here. But apart from that, of course, it's not just the Malaysians, but other tourists also will be coming here. Now, development is something that is well understood in Malaysia. When we became independent, we were a very poor country with no industries and only extractive businesses like producing rubber, palm oil, and tin. But we wanted to become developed. So we set about attracting investments in particular. That is because Malaysia had no technology, no capital, no management know-how for big companies, and also no knowledge about the world market. So by attracting foreign direct investment, we suddenly became very much an industrialized country. Today, Malaysia can be considered as industrialized, but in addition to that, of course, the population has become, earn more income, bigger income, and the country itself has developed through the efforts of the investors and the private sector. I'm quite sure that even Malaysian investors might be coming here if the situation is attractive enough. I just came from Cambodia. I was in Phnom Penh, and in Phnom Penh alone, there are 3,000 Malaysian businessmen working and living there, and they have contributed much towards the development of Cambodia. I'm quite sure, to a small extent at least, if Malaysian investors come here, there would be some contribution towards the growth and development of Vladivostok. Malaysians do have chains of hotels, and Malaysian hoteliers have been very active all over the world. One recent event is when a Malaysian hotelier bought 20 hotels in Iceland. Maybe people would not think Iceland is a very attractive destination for tourists, but a lot of people go to Iceland to see the northern lights and to see this very green but snowy country. There is something peculiar about the name of Iceland and its neighbor Greenland. Whereas Greenland is white with a lot of snow, Iceland is green with less snow. So it is a very interesting place, and for that reason, a Malaysian hotelier was willing to invest in that area. I'm quite sure that, in fact, they have also gone to Kyoto. I'm going to Kyoto after this, where they built a new hotel in Kyoto. Hotels are absolutely necessary if you want to attract more tourists. And of course, the hotels have various classes. It's not always the 5-star hotels which are popular, but the 3-star hotels are also popular. And this is our experience in Malaysia. So we are very glad indeed to hear that Russia is going to develop this part of Russia. Russia, of course, is one of the few countries that is both in Europe and in Asia. The other country is Turkey. But Russia is a sort of bridge. Physically, geographically, Russia is a bridge between East and West, between Europe and Asia. And I think this would help Russia to play a role not only in Europe, but also in the Far East. With Russian participation in the development of the Far East, I think Far Eastern people, Asians generally, would benefit from the activities, from the development of this part of Russia. So I've come here in order to learn more about this part of Russia and what you intend to do with the development of Vladivostok. All I know about Vladivostok is that it is a cold place, and when I landed yesterday, I was shocked to find that it is not cold at all. The temperature was almost like in Malaysia, 24 or 25 degrees. So it is not true that what we believe in Malaysia, that it is always covered by snow. I am quite sure that when it is snowing, it would look as beautiful as any other place. But to know that Russia can be warm and friendly is something that would be a great attraction for Malaysians and Southeast Asian people to come to this area. I would like to say that the relationship between Malaysia and Russia has always been good. I met Mr. Putin a long time ago. We have met many, many times in different forums, and we have never failed to have bilateral talks whenever we found the time and the occasion. And I think it is through these bilateral talks that we develop our relation. When Russia first exhibited their warplanes in the Langkawi International Airtime and Maritime and Air Show, immediately there was more interest in the Russian planes, and there were sales made there. So Malaysia is really a good place to market your products. It will not only be for Malaysia, but it will also attract a lot of other countries in Southeast Asia. Certainly in the field of this equipment, the numbers of sales, I believe, of Russian products have increased. And we are looking forward towards greater cooperation with Russia in the field of education. There is a proposal to set up a university focused on the aerospace engineering, which should be a great contribution towards upgrading Malaysian education. Malaysia is already an education hub. We attract more than 100,000 foreign students to Malaysia, and I believe there are a few students also from Russia studying in Malaysia. We have students from Africa, from Central Asia, and from many other places. And if Russia is going to promote its education and its, in particular, its engineering and aerospace knowledge, Malaysia is the place to put your university in. So I have had a long discussion with President Putin this morning, and I believe that we covered a lot of areas where we can work together, and I can see only benefit accruing from our closer relationship. So I would like to thank you once again for this opportunity to participate in this forum, and I hope that as a result there will be greater cooperation and friendship between Malaysia and Russia for our mutual benefit. I thank you.
If I may, I'd like to react just a couple of words as a reaction on the presentation by Mr. Prime Minister. Under the careful management of Prime Minister, Malaysia has become a well-developed economy just in a couple of years, a very promising developing country. And just about 12 years ago, time flies, Mr. Prime Minister was leaving his position and was believing that he's about to complete his political career. We've met in Malaysia at the Prime Minister's home, and his dear spouse invited me. It was a very warm welcome, a very warm, friendly meeting. And I visited the home of my dear colleague back then, despite the fact that we both believed back then was over. However, a lot has changed since then. But there is one thing that hasn't changed, and namely that is the attitude of Mr. Prime Minister towards Russia. Mr. Prime Minister was one of the initiators of the fact that Russia became an observer in the Organization of Islamic States. And I believe as one of the most experienced political leaders in the world, and one of the leaders of Islamic world, that kind of impact certainly goes beyond the borders of Malaysia. And it is indeed for me a great pleasure and joy to see that Mr. Prime Minister has honoured us with his visit and keeps this warm welcome. I believe it all deserves a very warm welcome. Thank you.
Prime Minister, by the way, what do you think is the limit for being a politician? What is like the limit of age for being a politician?
Well, at the moment, we have raised the age to 95.